Careful, because the Sudanese will tell you that they regained their independence in 1956 and Ghana in 1957, but I always remind them that the real independence.
Guys, most African countries think like after them getting independent, it was the last struggle for them to make. Most African countries after got independence, they think like they have come out from the hands of the white and they can't struggle anymore to have more independence. You see, these most African countries, we are still neo-colonialism that is still taking on, whereby there are some of the things, there are some of the activities that are there indirect from which was there before. So we can see some of the things that are here happening here in Africa, and you may just ask yourself, when will we come out of this new colonialism? Just listen to what Patrick Lumumba has said about new colonialism that is happening here in Africa, cause we've not been liberated ourselves as African. Just listen and we will proceed on. And guys, if you're not subscribed to the channel, just subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so that in case we do upload any story, you will be the first one to view. Thank you guys for those people who've supported this channel so far where it is now. Just dive in the Patrick Lumumba's statement on how we African we are still, on how we African we are supposed to move on, we are supposed to struggle to conquer this new neo-colonism that is happening here in Africa.
Careful, because the Sudanese will tell you that they regained their independence in 1956 and Ghana in 1957, but I always remind them that the real independence in Africa was with Ghana in 1957. And I can still remember those powerful words of Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah on 6th of March 1957 say that the independence of Ghana meant nothing if the rest of Africa was not free. But even as he spoke those words, Kwame Nkrumah was quite clear. He was clear that flag independence, the mere fact that we have the Ugandan flag or the Kenyan flag or the Ugandan national anthem or the Kenyan national anthem or the Ghanaian national anthem or the Nigerian national anthem was not sufficient, that there was something else. And he reminded us in 1965 that Africa was getting into the most dangerous stage, the stage where the former colonizers would become more deadly through the neo-colonial project. No sooner had he written his book than they overthrew him. No sooner had he written his book than they started destroying what we had inherited from them. So those of you who are students of history will remember the 1960s. You will remember in 1961, the Congolese thought that they had regained independence under Patrice Emery Lumumba. They killed him after 9 months. The Togolese thought that they had regained independence under Sylvanus Olympio. They killed him in 1963. The Ghanaians thought that they had regained independence in 1957. They overthrew Nkrumah in 1966. They thought in Nigeria that they had regained independence with Nnamdi Azikiwe and Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. They overthrew him in 1967. The Malians thought that they had regained independence through Modibo Keita. They overthrew him in 1968. The Algerians thought they did so through Ahmed Ben Bella. They overthrew him in 1968. Africa, as I speak now, and I want you to cast your eyes across the continent of Africa and see the crisis of governance, and therefore begging the question, is there a place for African culture and governance? Tell me whether there is peace in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Tell me whether there is peace in Sudan. Tell me whether there is peace in northern Mali. Tell me whether there is peace in Somalia. Tell me whether there is peace in Cameroon. Tell me whether the Europeans are not telling us what to do. Tell me whether they do not send their agents across every country. Tell me whether the IMF and the World Bank are not trying to interfere in our affairs. Tell me whether they are not telling us who a man is and who a woman is. Tell me whether they are not telling us what to wear. Tell me, what are they not telling us? They are telling us that if we don't have culture, they'll give us their culture. Tell me. This is the state in which we find ourselves. And therefore, today, when we are assembled here to remember Omukama Kabarega, and we ask ourselves whether there is a place for culture in development, we owe ourselves a duty to define what culture is. You know, European anthropologists, they are the notorious ones. They tell us that when you talk about African culture, they have no culture. They could not write. Not true. When the Europeans were living in caves, we already had the Benin Empire, longer than the Chinese walls. We already had the Monomotapa Empire. We already had the walls of Timbuktu. Before the Europeans knew whether it is the earth that went round the sun, the Dogon already knew astronomy as it is known today. They knew.
Right. Hope you've listened to this statement that was given out by Patrick Lumumba, and he has said clearly on how we African, we are still in the colonialism system, on how we African, we are still in neo-colonialism, and we see that neo-colonialism is so tough than the colonial itself. You will see how we African, we are being controlled by the colonial powers. We see how we African, we are being controlled by remote. Most of the African countries are being controlled by remote. They are being controlled like remote. You see, most of the countries, for them to do something, or for them to try to do something in their countries, they are supposed to get some of the advices from West countries. And most of the countries here in Africa, they have their resources which they are supposed to assist. The resources are supposed to help them in developing the country, but instead of them working on the resources, they just put the first priority on letting West countries to come in and do the resources and do work for them. Unfortunately, after those countries come in, the African countries, they do the work, but they get away with the resources. They come in Africa, they dilute and make sure that the culture of African culture is no longer being there. You see, most of the countries here in Africa, some of the countries or some of the communities in Africa right now, they have left their community, they have left their cultural, and they have decided to get the new cultures that are coming from West countries. And this is what we can say, that Patrick Lumumba is trying to show you guys, that he's trying to show you Africa to wake up. We Africa, we are supposed to make sure that we've changed our mentality. We've make sure that we've changed and we've tried to have in and to move in the new direction, and to wake up and make sure that we are no longer being colonized by the West people. You see, someone like Ibrahim Traore. Ibrahim Traore, he's here right now. Ibrahim Traore is like the Sankara. Ibrahim Traore is like Gaddafi. Ibrahim Traore is like those presidents who were there. Ibrahim Traore is like those people who struggled for independence, but later they were eliminated, but later they were destroyed, but later they were overturned from power. So Patrick Lumumba is trying to make us to understand that the way we usually see Ibrahim Traore spreading the unity of Africa, we are supposed to come clear, and we are supposed to follow him, so that we African can prosper. We African can make sure that we are no longer in the West cultural. We are supposed to make sure that we are proceeding in our own culture, instead of us depending in West cultures. So someone like Sankara, someone like Gaddafi, you saw how Gaddafi was killed. Gaddafi was killed in the manner that he was killed, and he was eliminated by the West people, simply because that they came up with some of the issues which were not there. West came up with some of the issues which were not true, according to we African. Right now we know what was happened by then, but those people who were there never knew what was there by then. You see how Ibrahim Traore is being targeted by the West. You see how Ibrahim Traore is being targeted by the people from France, from US. You saw Michael Langley coming in Africa. Michael Langley saying that Ibrahim Traore is not the best fit president of Burkina Faso, is not the best fit the leader of Burkina Faso. Ibrahim Traore is the man who uses gold to protect himself. So those are the things that West people usually come in to give the allegation to the leader whom Africans believes in, and later they destroy him, and later they assassinate the person. So Patrick Lumumba is trying to show us, is trying to make us that we are supposed to wake up, and we are supposed to unite, and we are supposed to fight enemy. Whenever enemy comes in Africa and decides to go to destroy one leader here in Africa, all the African leaders were supposed to stand up and fight to make sure that we are supposed not to lose one leader here in Africa. So guys, just remember to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell, so that in case we do upload any story, you'll be the first one to view. And remember, we youths, we are supposed to rise up, and we youths are supposed to make sure that we have deliberated the African nations, and deliberate the African nation, and make sure that we are no longer being used. And guys, let us meet in the next episode.